Hello, everybody. This is the Great Johannes speaking. I'm doing another live stream on the Tickety Tag app. Senator, is this thing connected to the Wi Fi? All right. I wanted to dedicate this live stream episode to the topic of technology, namely the rise and fall of technology. So, if you're interested in that topic, then bear with me. I've noticed something is that we used to praise inventors uh, because the inventions they made truly supported humanity. They really propelled us forward. Say, for example, with the invention of the light bulb, electricity, and so on. These things really improved upon a candle lit home. Oh, a single candle, for example, does not emit a lot of light or warmth, and you would need a ton of candles to light your home the way I've just lit this apartment with one bulb up there and one light over there, two lighting sources. So we praise the Edisons and the Teslas, the Nikola Teslas, I don't mean Musk. We praise them as we praised others, physicists, Newton, Einstein. Yeah, they brought us what we felt was true progress because there was a benefit to be gained for individuals to embrace these new technologies, to learn to work with them, like riding a bicycle. A bicycle is an amazing piece of equipment, right? Some people have called it, no, some people have called computers the bicycle for the mind. I don't quite agree with that. But definitely a bicycle, learning to ride a bicycle, learning to maintain your own bike, gets you ahead in life. You can travel farther. It means you could even get a better job, all right? Just over the horizon instead of having to walk. Walking is like 5 kilometers an hour. That's too slow, right? And then something happened. So, first, technology was definitely beneficial to humanity, but now it no longer is. What is really the upgrade? If you already own a car, a petrol car, and you switch to a Tesla electric vehicle, what is really the technological advancement there? Oh, it's electric. It's got a touchscreen interface, okay, but it's still just a car. You do the same thing with it. It's not really an enhancement anymore. It doesn't really bring innovation anymore. What it what has happened is the technology, the inventions that used to provide a benefit to individuals have all become scams now. The whole US tech industry is one giant bubble waiting to be burst. And when it does, I think we will be ushered in to the post-technological age. Post-technological does not mean I'm going to throw away the microphone. If as long as there's electricity and internet, we'll still use that. But it means that there will be no more big technological advances ahead of us, right? Uh, Things like Neuralink may turn out to be simply a scam. Neuralink is the chip they can implant in your brain, and it connects to your nerve endings. And using it with it's like a remote control in your brain. You can do things on the internet with it. You can move a mouse cursor with it, for example. But again, how many people would really need to use a mouse cursor with their head? Paraplegic people, that's like 1 in a million, right? My point is, we have the rise and fall of technology. First, technology offers us a benefit, and now it basically sinks us deeper in debt, right? And there's an end game there. If you understand what I'm talking about, the end game is a very small billionaire elite will suck the middle classes dry, especially the white middle classes of the Western world, because the middle class white people in the USA own more savings and assets combined than the top 10 banks do. So the reason why we still have Tesla, and now we're thinking of drones and flying cars and robots and cyber cabs, right, is because this fake tech or this scam tech is being funded with the wealth that was once earned in a real economy. Our economies are now fake. So we're using the proceeds of a real economy of the past to fund the fake economy of the present and the near future. Someone wonders when did it all change? Well, I think the answer is around 1960s, 70s or so. Maybe I wouldn't say feminism caused it, obviously, but I would say around the time feminism became a popular thing in the 1970s. Probably that was a sort of switch around period where humanity simply got stuck. We decided to go down the road of technology, and it's not going anywhere anymore, right? Young people are putting off buying a house. They can't have families. And it's not because they don't want to or because women love being a feminist career worker. No, it's because they can't afford it. Because there's that generation before them who has all the wealth. They're not passing it on. Right? If you're applying for a job, even entry-level jobs say you need 12 years experience. The only people with 12 years experience are older people, get it? So the older people give each other the best jobs. And the younger people, they can be coffee ladies or so, right? They can polish someone's shoes, right? But they don't get access to the promotions that would give them the sort of salary you need in order to buy a house. There's a female mayor somewhere in England. She's the mayor of a small town, and she can't afford to live in it because the housing in that town is all too expensive, and she as a mayor does not make enough money to buy a house, right? Then what's the point even? So young people are starting to question, what's even the point of working hard if even if you're a mayor or a judge or a general, you can't afford to buy a house? Then what's the point of society? Hence is why we have so much of those off the grid shows on YouTube. There's videos about off the grid living that get like 20, 30 million views. Someone building a shack, right, with an axe and a saw, and it draws people in because it offers the escape, or at least the possibility of escape, that we might leave the urban industrial world behind and return to the forests, if you will, to the forests of Canada. And there are plenty of uninhabited forests in the Northern Hemisphere for our people that we could, occupy, right? Northern Sweden, Northern Finland, Northern Canada, right? The Arctic, subarctic region, basically. There's plenty of space to do so there, right? So I was talking about how the promise of technology turns out to be a lie. Initially, and I think it works like this over and over again. So I'll give you the example of solar panels. Initially, they sell you solar panels because if you buy them and you put them on your roof, you're going to reduce your electric bill, right? So you buy them because they're subsidized. Initially, it's all subsidized to get people on board because they need it for scale, right? There's a scale advantage. But you bought the older version, and now there's the newer version, which is 20 times as efficient. So you got to buy another set of panels to be 20 times as efficient. Okay, so now you've got the most efficient panels. Your electric bill is still lowered, reduced. Maybe you don't even have an electric bill anymore at this point. But now you got the following problem, especially where we live in Europe. Oh, I've got a lot of sunlight in the summer, but I don't have any in the winter. I can't use my solar panels in the winter when I need them the most. When the days are short and I want to turn on the light, why is there no electricity coming from my panels? Okay, you got to invest in battery packs, huge batteries that are so dangerous that 1 in 1,000 of them will explode or set fire to itself, burn down your house. So your home insurance literally goes up when you get solar panel batteries, so you can store some of the electricity from the summer and then use it in the winter. And it's a problem that can barely be fixed at all. You would need batteries the size of your garage at minimum, right? If that thing blows up, you take out your whole neighborhood. You don't want that. So there's a huge problem in getting summer sunlight and then using it in the winter. Obviously, if that were possible, we'd all be magicians, right? So, okay, you invest in a couple of batteries at least. So you got some, so for example, the sunlight you catch during the day, you can then use it in the evening. So you invest in a smaller battery, but still the battery costs $5,000 or so, and it's a hazard. It's a fire hazard, right? All right, but now you want to have improvements to your home. Now, because during the day you have a lot of electricity, you're starting to think, what can I use it for? Okay, you can supply it back to the grid. Oh, okay. At first, they welcome people supplying electricity to the grid, right? And then to lower your electric bill, you get a bonus. And now they start punishing you. Now you have to pay the grid people, the grid company, the company that operates the grid. You have to pay them a fee if you want to offload your energy, your surplus, to the community. You got to pay for it. In the Netherlands, this is the case already, and many other countries are following suit. Why is it so? Well, I told you, during the day, when the sun is out in the summer, everybody's got their panels generating electricity, but no one needs it because the sun is out. You don't need to turn on the lights, right? People are at work. So everybody wants to dump their electricity on the grid, but the grid can't handle it. So now your taxes go up because we have to invest in a newly improved grid. The electric grid in the USA was built in the 19th century, right? Compare that to the grid in China, which is built in the late 20th century, starting, right? And look at countries like, I don't know, Qatar or Saudi Arabia. Their electric grid is from the 21st century. They actually have the newer grid. Countries like Belgium and the Netherlands, England, we've got a 19th century electric grid. It can't handle the surges. It can't handle surges, and it can't handle the volume of all these, the windmills as well. Let's not even talk about wind power. Let's just stick with solar for a moment, right? The grid can't handle all the electricity that we're generating, but now they expect everybody to go electric, drive an electric car, have one of those electric scooters. The demand for electricity is shooting up, so you can guess what's happening, right? The electricity price goes up because of all of this mess. Because electricity is now no longer something that is generated in a stable manner by burning coal or by burning oil or gas in these massive centralized electricity generators, right? No, now it comes on and off. There's a bunch of people over here in this town generating a lot. They want to dump it on the grid. And everybody's doing it at the same time. The grid can't handle it, and so on and so forth. Then you get the fires in LA, which they say were started by electric wires, hot wires, starting fires, right? I don't really believe that story. I think the fires in LA, by the way, was a conspiracy. They just deliberately shortcut some towers and set fire to. Basically, I would arrest the mayor and Governor Newsom as well, because they know more. At least for questioning, you would have to talk to them, right? Hold on. And so I'm describing a situation the way it is in the Netherlands. People buy the panels because it's subsidized. They buy them with subsidies, right? They buy them at a time where they don't have to pay for offloading their electric grid, right? For offloading their energy to the grid. Now they have to start paying it because there's too many people with panels on their roof now. Now you have to pay to dump your electricity on the grid. It starts with a small fee. It's 20 euros in the Netherlands right now. So the fee increases, right? As more and more, as there's an oversupply of electricity when people don't need it, and an undersupply of electricity when people do need it, right? This is all common sense. Everybody can think of this, right? The idea is now, you come to a point where nobody wants to buy panels anymore because they're no longer subsidized. The benefit is gone. You're not really benefiting that much anymore, right? So in the Netherlands, we used to heat our homes mostly with gas. Now, because we're going electric, we're switching to a different kind of system called a heat pump system that runs on electricity. But the heat pump system needs to be built. It costs 12,000 euros to put that in your house, minimum. Turns out the maintenance of the heat pumps is incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive, right? Turns out certain companies that install the heat pump system in your house don't want to maintain it because they don't know how, because it's too expensive and too complicated, right? So the heat pump system also is unreliable, doesn't really work very well. There's people in the Netherlands, which you think is a first world country, who are now actually suffering cold temperatures in their house because the heat pump system has been broken for a whole week. And they don't have the gas system anymore as a failsafe, as a backup. So that's the other problem. We're also stacking infrastructure upon infrastructure. When we switch to solar and wind, that doesn't mean we can do away with gas and oil. Like I said, solar and wind are dependent on the weather, which is unpredictable. So when there is no wind and when the sun isn't out, in the Netherlands for the past month, we had almost a month of fog and mist, fog all over the atmosphere. So there was very little sunlight, right? So we have to use the gas-powered electric grids again, right? We have to use electricity from burning wood, biomass fuels. There's some biomass plants in the Netherlands. Biomass means they cut the forests of Estonia and Finland and Sweden. They haul those logs over on diesel trucks to the Netherlands to burn them here in ovens to generate electricity for your Tesla. Hey, doesn't that sound incredibly stupid? Right, but we're doing it anyway because electricity from natural sources is unpredictable, right? The only way to get like stable electricity is to get gas and oil and so on, right? So the issue here is we have to keep the gas powered electric grid, like the old-fashioned one, we have to keep it in case there is no wind or solar. And then we are still building a modern grid on top of that. So we have to maintain basically two different systems feeding into a grid, right? That is impossible. This is what is called the death by complexity. You make your society and its maintenance so complicated and so expensive to maintain that the society simply doesn't last. It's not going to work out. When you have, we're not really switching from fossil to green. We're adding green to fossil, but we still have to work with fossil in case green doesn't work, right? So the ideological dream, by the way, do you know where the idea comes from to live off of wind and solar in a sort of durable energy society? It comes from a book written by the grandson of Charles Darwin. Yeah, the Charles Darwin, the author of the The Origin of Species, about evolution theory. He had a grandson also named Charles Darwin, and he wrote a book, The Next Million Years. I think that's the title. The Next Million Years, where he says all human beings have to be herded into the cities. No more free-range humans who think they can live in the forest or even in suburbia. He wants to do away with all of that to make humanity hyper efficient in terms of energy use, right? And it was his idea. He wrote this book, what was it, in the 1950s or so. He wrote this book proclaiming that we were going to use solar and wind and only renewable energy sources, no more fossil, right? But it turns out that these grand visionaries, these what do you call them, seers, didn't see very well. They didn't really do their job very well. So they got it wrong, right? There's too much they did not take into account, like the technical feasibility of it all. The rising complexity, where you add new technologies to the old system, but you can't really do away with the old yet because you're building infrastructure upon infrastructure rather than switching from one to another. Now you have a stack of infrastructures, and that's what kills societies. The societies of the West can only afford to do so because we previously, up until around the 1950s, 60s, 70s, we used to have a real economy that was growing, real growth. Now it's all about scam coins and shit coins, and even technology companies like Nvidia and Tesla and so on, and of course social media companies like Facebook and so on. They are not really progressing humanity anymore. They are just looking for ways to get access to the real wealth that the boomer generation and perhaps Gen X and millennials have. It's their wealth that they're after. We're not innovating to progress humanity. We're inventing scams in order to pull the rock, basically, right? All right. Hold on. So what I'm trying to describe is where technology is a phenomenon that has a beginning and an end. The industrial age will come to an end. People say we already live in the post-industrial age in the West because we're basically service economies, right? We make apps and we have the ideas, right? The United States likes to present itself as the idea guy in the room. They have the idea for the iPhone, but the Chinese will make it for them, right? That too is changing. China is now inventing DeepSeek, or China is inventing other things. Did you know that in the top 60 global industries, China is leading in over 55 of them right now? They are inventing, they are innovating, right? It took them a while to figure out why they should do that, or perhaps, but eventually they did. China is catching on. The United States is not really a technology leader. They just have a big military. They control fossil fuel, right? They control the narrative. Basically, the United States has inherited the wealth and power of previous generations, right? But they're now misusing that wealth and power toward basically goals that are scams. Okay? Hold on. I'm trying to have a look at some of your comments now and then. I think I'm going to try to round off my story first, and then I'm going to go be more interactive with the audience in the second half hour, so a little bit more. So my point is, so maybe I want to explain, like, why would the industrial age come to an end? Why would technology, as we know it, in terms of both machines like cars and also apps and so on, app stores, why would that ever come to an end? It simply comes to an end when ordinary citizens, ordinary users no longer receive a either real or perceived benefit from these apps. Because the difference between real and perceived is if it's real, you want it. If it's perceived, it will motivate you to work for it still. And a lot of people are doing just that. A lot of people in their 20s and 30s are working their asses off to hopefully get the promotion and then maybe have enough salary to get the mortgage for the house they didn't want. Nobody is even thinking that they can buy their dream house. Unless you're from a wealthy family, you're not going to get your dream house. So everybody has to settle for less. There's people settling for an apartment, but the apartment they get is small, cramped, right? And it still costs you everything you've got. Even your parents' loan, you have to ask your parents for 30K for the down payment or something, because you don't have the cash for the down payment. You have to ask your parents for the loan, right? So even with the support of your parents, you're going to have a very hard, and even with like you and your lover both working together on a job, making the money, you still have trouble affording the house and the car, because you may need, now you need two cars, of course, because you're both working, so you need two cars, right? And you don't even spend much time in your house because you're always working, right? And then when you have kids, you have to get daycare because you can't cancel your job because you might get the promotion and you need it for the mortgage, right? And so you don't even get to see your kids anymore, but you got to pay for daycare. So you're only stacking cost upon cost upon cost while life is flowing away from you. So there's a turning point there. The turning point is when people begin to realize, hey, that life is not worth working hard for. So the perceived benefit no longer appeals to anyone, right? To me personally, I have a petrol car, right? A small compact car. It's not the most fuel efficient car you can get. Definitely not, because it's 13, 14 years old meanwhile, right? But it drives perfectly, no problems with it, right? It's technologically sound. But why would I ever want to buy an electric car? To me, the perceived benefit of driving electric isn't there. It just means I have to wait too long at a charging point. I have to sit there for 30 minutes or so. The range, I read an article today that in cold weather, the German, how do you call it? The German highway service. So when your car breaks down on the highway, you call somebody to come and help you. I don't know what that's called in England or in English, but in Germany it's called the ADAC, ADAC, and you can call them for help, right? The road help, right? And they did a study looking at all the different electric car models out there in the world, right? And they found out that in cold weather, say freezing temperatures, cars lose range, electric cars lose range by almost 50% on average, 50 to 54% on average. So you only get half the range in cold weather. That means everything else, the cost of everything else doubles, right? So why would I want an electric car if in the Netherlands it's going to be cold for a few months a year, right? I'd have to buy a fairly new car because there are no 10-year-old electric cars yet, right? Maybe there's now 5-year-old electric cars, but the electric cars that are 5 years old, that's an old model. That's like an iPhone 1, right? But you need an iPhone 6 to be able to use the internet nowadays, right? TikTok doesn't work on an iPhone 2, I presume. I don't know. I don't have an iPhone 2 anymore. But so I have to have a fairly recent electric car, which is going to be very expensive to me. I would either have to get a loan or I work my ass off for the car. It just doesn't appeal to me. I don't even like the design of Tesla cars, right? So why would I want one? It doesn't appeal to me. And I think this is exactly how it works. The initial appeal that was there for the real benefit becomes a perceived benefit that you're still working for, and then it becomes a dead end, something you don't want to work for anymore. You just say, I don't want this anymore. I don't even like this life anymore. Why are we working so hard for practically nothing, right? I don't even want to be in this society anymore. I want to get the hell out of here. I want things to be different again. I want to do away with all the unnecessary technology. I don't want to have a smart house. I don't want to live in a smart city with cameras everywhere tracking my face. And then, of course, I have to pay taxes to maintain all that, right? I don't want to live in an office where I'm spending my whole day behind a screen, right? I don't want to live my life behind screens all the time. Now, I spend a lot of time on the screens, of course, because I'm a TikTok podcaster, right? But I have a reason for it. I'm trying to get my message out so that I can then go and speak at speeches in the real world, right? And so that's where it ends. People are then going on YouTube to look for alternatives, and they find the off-the-grid people building cabins in the woods with an axe that they sharpen themselves, and they live off goats that they milk themselves, and they make candles of beeswax that they collect themselves. Beekeeping is dangerous, I think. I used to watch some videos about beekeeping, but that's a different story. They cook in the stove, all right, with the wood that they chop themselves. That's a totally different life. A life where you have a good proper bucket, right? Not one of those plastic ones, but a good proper bucket that you take out, and there's a fresh stream of water there. I mean, you have to collect water yourself every morning. You get 2 buckets full of water, right, for the day, right? So you can cook and clean and wash and so on, right? That is very different from pressing an electric button for hot water, right? I think there's going to be 2 classes of people in the future, only 2 classes. Those who wish to learn and acquire the skills to fend for themselves, collecting water, making candles of beeswax, sharpening your axe, right? Chopping your own wood, right? Cooking your own meals. Those people who know how to churn milk into butter and yogurt and so on, and cheese. And then there's the whole other class of people who are so accustomed, so used to being serviced by an electric robot. One day that robot simply won't be there. And what about those people? Possibly a majority of people who live in big cities. They're going to starve, and it's going to be like the zombie apocalypse. They're going to come for the farms first. Any farms near big cities are basically screwed because the zombies, human zombies, the hungry normies, the urbanites, they will venture out to big towns to find these. They've got their little Teslas, but there's still a battery charge in it, so they can maybe reach 100 or 200, 300 miles on that thing, looking for food outside of the city. So they're like locusts eating up your crop. They're going to be like locusts eating all the food they can find in and around the cities until they run out of their battery charge, their final battery charge. They run out of fossil fuels in their cars, and then it ends. So this is why those preppers, they always give you this advice. If you want to survive the coming technology apocalypse, you better move now 200 to 300 miles out and away from big cities, because that's about the range that they get from a full charge of a Tesla car or so, or a petrol car. Beyond that, people just won't be able to reach you, right? You may have a chance at standing up for yourself. You can arm yourself with weapons you can make. Like you can make your own bow, right? Learn how to make a bow, like a long bow that has a good range and a kill shot, right? Or you can make crossbows, or you can make perhaps swords. If you know how to do metal work, you can make your own swords. Or maybe you will have some ammunition from the old civilization. You will have some ammunition left and you can use that. Whatever you can think of, but you will have to defend yourself against the hungry urbanites who are coming for you like zombies, right? Urbanites, right? All right, so that was a bit my story from start to finish. I tried to tell you the story of why technology at first had an appeal because it was real, we were really progressing. Then it changes into something that is just like a stock market scam, like the Tesla Hyperloop or the Neuralink. Turns out these things just don't work and won't work, but they were really clever scams to get you interested in them and pay for it, and you bought stock, right? Because you're buying stock nowadays, right? You didn't buy a Hyperloop. You got no Hyperloop in your street, but maybe you bought some Tesla stock instead because you believed in these ideas. Have you noticed how clever Elon Musk really is? Right? He gives you these ideas of Neuralink, multiplanetary civilization, Hyperloop, right? And you think like, whoa, right? And so you buy the stock, and that's how he gets your money. It's just stupid, you know? Don't fall for it. You know, the author of The Black Swan, Nassim Taleb, he was in an interview just recently talking about the fact that he thinks Nvidia is going to crash 2 to 3 times more than it already has. That could mean losses in the trillions. But where did that money come from, and where does it go exactly when a stock market crashes? Have you ever wondered that? Where it goes is that average investors who are slow to pull out will lose all their money, right? And the big guys the early, meaning smart money, they got in early, they're taking all your money out. So the way you should perceive a stock market is like a table imagine a table, and you put in $20, someone else puts in $40, someone else puts in $100, right? And then one day, all right, a mafia guy with his goons comes in and he takes all the money off the table, and you got nothing left. That's how the stock market really works. It's just a bunch of mobsters robbing the common folk. But there ain't no Robin Hood in our time, and there won't be. There's the sheriff of Nottingham. He gets away with it. There's no Robin Hood coming to save you. You got to save yourself by quit investing in stuff. Quit investing in stock that is based on ideas and, right? AI is the new revolution, the fourth revolution, the fifth turning. They use all these phrases to get you to believe that it's something real, right? You know, Donald Trump announces he wants to put $500 billion in AI developments, and then the Chinese come out with DeepSeek and make him look like a fool because DeepSeek is 97% cheaper to run than ChatGPT, right? It makes ChatGPT look like a bunch of fools. But of course, what they were doing is it was deliberate. The Americans, ChatGPT, Sam Altman, Elon Musk included, they didn't care if AI is real or useful. They cared that it was a hype. And if they would somehow hype up NVIDIA graphics cards and data centers the size of Manhattan. Mark Zuckerberg wants to build a data center the size of Manhattan Island in New York, right? Right? And we need Greenland. We need to annex. Canada needs to be the 51st state. Why? Because Canada and Greenland, they have a lot of natural resources, gas and oil buried underneath the soil, right? Right, and we need the Panama Canal because we need to control trade and whatever, right? They're grabbing all they want because they want to hype up this idea of AI, the demand for AI. Every little schoolgirl will want to use AI someday, right? And so they're trying to sell you that, and you put your money in it, it's gone, you know? And it's gone. It's like that meme from South Park. Like you put your money in the bank and it's gone. That's Wall Street. And they've been doing it for 100 years. Okay, now I'm gonna focus a bit more on your comments. So is China the future? China is doing the same thing wrong that the West is doing wrong. They also ran with technology. There maybe for a while China will be better at producing technology. But this massive production of technology in our time, the way I see it, is a phenomenon that belongs to a dying civilization. Because civilizations are no longer able to produce children and big families, but they still inherit a lot of wealth and power from the previous generations that did grow a real economy. So China has that same problem. They have a lot of wealth from the previous generations. They're spending it on technological advances now, right? But they're not really able to have a lot of kids anymore there. So the civilization is basically dying. And because people can't spend money on having more families, bigger families, they'll just spend it on luxury items. You know, they'll spend it on apparel, watches, sunglasses, not because they need it, right? You know those people, they have like a box of sunglasses. They got like 50 different sunglasses, some of them really expensive. Why would you need all that, you know? I met somebody who has a whole collection of these Stanley cups, but you only need one. Why do you have 12? You know, that's overconsumption for the sake of overconsumption because there's something else that you wanted, maybe like a real life, but you couldn't get that. So then you just buy a bunch of Stanley cups. Okay. So yeah, I sound a bit like a Luddite, I suppose. I'm a bit anti-technology, not because I don't want to use technology. I'm using the microphone right now. I've got my webcam over here. It's all fancy, but I don't live for the technology. I only want to just use the technology that I need to achieve other goals. And I would like to help, especially people in the Western world, transition from their dependency on scam technology and then make themselves more talented. Like go and explore your talents. Go and explore your all the things you wish you were able to do. Like, I don't know, playing the trumpet, drawing well, painting, handicraft, you know, woodwork. What do you like? What did you like to do as a child? Being an inventor or something? Mowing your lawn, but with a mechanical lawnmower, not with an electric one, right? Or growing your own food, milking a cow. Have you ever milked a cow or drank straight from the cow, right? You know, or worked with goats. I visited a town in the south of Norway once where you can go skiing. It's called Geilo, but it's spelled Geilo. 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 I think that's how they say it in Norwegian. And when you take the train there, the train goes through this rural area. So you basically from Stockholm, you go up the mountains, up the fjords, because Geilo is like a mountain town. And as you go up the mountains, you see all these small towns with where you can see people who have like 12 or 13, 20 goats outside of their house. They still live off of goat milk there, right? And that's probably for personal use, right? Or maybe small sales here and there. So there's a lot of goat herders up in the mountains. You have these goats that survive the cold very well, right? That, I think, is going to become the next big thing in tech. Goats. I'm not kidding. I honestly believe that the technology in the USA is a bubble. It will burst. All bubbles burst. It will burst precisely because too many people no longer experience a perceived benefit. So they switch to other things that are still beneficial to them, which could be learning how to churn milk into butter, cheese, yogurt. Especially if you acquire this skill to do this yourself, you can actually feel proud of yourself. Hey, all of a sudden my hands make use of things again. I don't just have to spend my whole day with my fingers typing on a keyboard. I actually get to, you know, milk a cow and make myself useful. Um, we spend so much time living in artificial worlds, in office environments and so on, and so little time in nature. I often go for a hike in nature every Sunday or so. Sunday afternoons, I would go to a, if even if it's been raining, I'll just put on my rubber boots and I'll go for a short hike, just an hour or so. Right? I almost never meet people, and that's in the Netherlands, which is overcrowded. Right? And that's odd. When I do go to the forest, usually where I go, there's like a restaurant there. The restaurant is packed full of people, but the forest is empty. I don't get that. I really don't understand that. Yeah, true. It's how we're supposed to live. You're supposed to live using your own hands, your own wits, and your own talents. But also, you should be allowed, especially, actually, it should have been done when you were a child. When you're a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, you want to learn about all these things, about how to do woodwork and masonry and so on, and how to farm and milk animals, how to deal with animals and so on, or fixing your bicycle. At least I had this sort of childhood when I was growing up in the 1980s. I had a little BMX bike and I had the tools to fix it up myself. I was able to do whatever I wanted with it. So I learned to repair bicycles as a kid, and I could, swap out a flat tire myself. I didn't need help for that by age 8. So those are the skills that matter, right? It's just, it will be such an awful world if humanity devolves into a sort of creature that needs to be babysit by robots, right? That's an awful future. We don't want that future. We want people to stand up on their own 2 feet and feel competent and confident that their skills are useful, that they can use their own abilities to create a future for themselves, that they can survive and pass these skills on to their children, who will then also survive. That's how it's always been, and it's only been different during this industrial age that started just in the mid 19th century or so. Just for the past 150 years, we've been living in a very strange world where people work jobs that are not related to their survival. If you're an accountant working in an office, typing numbers into your Excel sheet, how does that relate to your survival in terms of growing food and building a house for shelter and so on? It's really odd. It's a very strange thing that has happened, that so many people are now specialized in work that does not serve their survival at all. If the electricity would end, if you would no longer be able to use electricity, what good are your skills as an office manager? It's just a useless skill, really. All right, I'm gonna have a little sip of my cup. Yeah, exactly. Elon Musk robots are bad, anti-human, man. I see several developments here. All right, so you have people who favor the robots; they're very strong on robotics. Then there's those who favor transhumanism, or even merging people with machines, like the cyborgs and so on, right? Like the Terminator or something, right? And then you have those who don't want to have anything to do with any of this, right? Who want humanity to return to being human again, to create a human world where human beings feel spirited, right? As though the sensation you sometimes have when you're out in the world, something happens that's never happened before, and you respond to it instinctively in a way as though you were an expert in that response, but you never learned how to do it. And you feel like, wow, what if that's something I got from my ancestors? What if my ancestors had been in such a situation so often, they got good at it and they passed it on to me, and when it happened to me, even though I had never done this before, I was good at it too. I just naturally felt like, do you feel that? Right? It could give you like a sort of goosebump feeling that you feel like, whoa, What did I just do, you know? That is the world I promote. It's the world where human beings are in touch with their ancestors. You feel their talents flowing through your own veins and your fingers, your hands, and you know how to do things and you know how to pass these things on. You are no longer a government employee or a bureaucrat or some one of those cubicle workers, people who work in a cubicle in those offices. Is that still real? Cubicles, man. That's the death of humanity. Well, I got startled because something fell off the wall. All right, so we need to. So, like I said, there's several pathways toward the future: the robots, the cyborgs, the transhumanism, where people want to crossbreed humans with animals, man. And then there's me. I want humanity to be human again, spirited, confident, independent, and perhaps a little bit dominant too. Just dominance in the sense of I don't need to control you as though I want you to be my slave, but dominance in the sense of I'm in charge what happens around me, right? I'm in charge of my life. People come mess with my life, I push them out, right? Or I make them behave differently. A little bit of dominance doesn't hurt. It means you'll be mentally very healthy, actually, if people don't get to mess with you too much, right? You know how to stand up for yourself verbally, of course, but also in terms of behavior, your attitude, right? And if you need be, if it's necessary, you push someone back. You push them out of your life. Get out of here. Get away from me, right? That's perfectly normal. In fact, that should be a skill that we should teach children. It's okay to be verbally loud and tell someone to fuck off sometimes, right? But a lot of people wouldn't dare to do that anymore. They're afraid. They're afraid of what? Afraid of losing their jobs. Yeah, they are. People are afraid of losing their jobs, right? Yeah. So in terms of anti-technologies, imagine the following. Imagine that due to geopolitical circumstances, electricity clocks out. Then what are you going to do? There's so many things you won't be able to do anymore. You can't watch me anymore, right? And so I think there's a difference between modern technology and tools. We will use axes and saws, and we maybe continue to use things like bicycles, mechanical technology that serves a purpose, right? And we will use, you have a stove, and if you can't fire it with gas, then you need wood, so you have a wood stove. But the stove is a very, very delicately designed thing, because the stove that people used to use in their kitchens in the 19th century also heated their homes. So you had to plan ahead also, like, okay, I'm going to cook maybe around this time so that by the time I'm finished, my house is also warm, and then I can have some warmth before I go to sleep, right? You used to plan these things ahead more, but you also felt in charge of this planning. Today, not so much. People don't feel in charge anymore. That's a real problem, right? Yeah, assert your boundaries, right? That's actually not true. Nobody in the past was struggling for food all day. During the 1400s and the 1500s, and this is science, by the way, I saw the research last week. During the 1400s and 1500s, peasants in Europe were only working about 120 days out of the year because they had their own plot of land with a cow on it and some grain. And you don't actually need to work 8 hours a day for that, for 300 days a year. No, 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 no. The peasants of Europe during the so-called Middle Ages, they were healthy, physically healthy, and they basically only worked no more than 4 hours a day, plowing the land and collecting the harvest and so on, because a lot of this time was spent planning ahead. You didn't need to work every day as hard. We work a lot more than we do now. And it was even worse during the industrial age, right? In the age of the factories and so on, people were working 12 hours a day, 18 hours a day. Now it's just 8 hours a day, but it used to be 3 or 4, no more than 4 a day, right? And that's, so why are we working so much? Well, you're working for the luxury items, the cars. You're working for the webcam and the microphone. The peasants of Europe didn't need any of that in the 14th, 15th, 16th century. So they didn't need to work as hard. So there's a trade-off. You want this kind of technology, you work 40 hours a week. You don't need it, go live off the grid, you work 20 hours a week, right? So it comes down to that. When you no longer have to work 20 hours a week, you have a lot more time for your religious experiences, your religious rituals, for developing your personality, working on your psychology, working on skills, right? You don't have time for that nowadays. Uh, my I'm using TikTok Live Studio, and sometimes it gives me a pop-up and complaining about whatever. You are working 20 hours a week, great, but it kind of means you're clocking yourself out of the Tesla ownership, right? You're not going to buy a Tesla probably. Or maybe you are. It depends on your situation, but you know. I am Dutch, but I'm not an MP. Why would I be an MP? I can't go into politics because they just shut me down, have me arrested, throw me in jail for hate speech and so on. What I want to do would be more from a religious angle and a sort of spiritual angle, trying to it's just I see it more as my job to pass on certain ideas and motivations and inspirations to people, so that we can, in the end, of course, rally people toward a massive popular uprising, non-violent, of course, and not even directed against the state powers or authorities, but rather away from them. I think we people can just literally just get up and leave and go do something else with our lives. But if enough of us do it all at once, that's how we win. We win power, right? People in the UK have it bad, man. There's not new Orwellian laws that say you can't say that there's two-tier policing in the UK. Everybody knows there is. Even foreigners know there is. Or you can't. It's far right to say you believe in two-tier policing. Well, I believe in a sense, not that you want it, but you believe that it's there. Yeah, they say you're far right. It's just crazy. Texan here. Do you feel a brotherhood with American conservatives? Yeah, kind of. As long as it's not value conservatism, right? It's like it's not about values, and then you lose your people to immigration. No, no. It's we need the sort of values that would defend our people against being replaced by immigration. So I'm more of a, what do you call that? Preserving the blood type, a preservationist, perhaps. Two-tier policing in the UK. Yeah. You mentioned me the book Always the Horizon. Oh, I haven't read it yet, but I'm gonna make a note now. Always the Horizon, huh? Always the Horizon. I read a lot of books, so if there's a good book now and then, I'll read it. Right. Too much collectivism in Western Europe. Yeah, it's because largely because people in Western Europe live in densely packed cities. The Western Europe is not that big, compared to the USA. Uh, it's overpopulated, and because of the overpopulation, people's behavior changes. Right? People have to obey so many laws they perhaps don't dare to be themselves anymore because you might anger somebody, or you might get arrested or something. Who knows, right? What do I think of feminism? What does feminism think of people? Right? What is feminism even? I read a book by Shulamith Firestone on the dialectic of sex, in which she basically argues to abolish the male sex altogether. So that's radical feminism, but Shulamith Firestone was a leader of the second wave of feminism. That's what they really believe. They want to turn us into sort of there's a kind of a lizard, the Mexican, I don't know what's it called, some kind of lizard that is named Mexican something, that doesn't have males. They are a female only species that reproduce by cloning themselves. And you have radical feminists who want that for humanity. They just want to clone. Why do you think they start talking to you about cloning humans? Because if you can clone humans, then you don't need men. You can do away with the male sex and then just clone the females. Right? That's why they want cloning. But then again, such ideas themselves are an expression of humanity's existential crisis. Like, why are we here? What are we doing? I think it's easy to imagine new futures, but it's extremely difficult to realize one, right? To make one of the pathways real. And I think the healthiest, soundest thing that humanity can do is to return ourselves to a bit of a pre-industrial lifestyle where most people are peasants and we have a lot of time, a lot of free time to work on our personalities and to analyze our dreams. I spoke to my father recently and he had never recorded any of his dreams in his entire life. I've been recording my dreams since 2017 and I think I've recorded almost 80 dreams or so. How it works is, you know, that moment where you just wake up, you open your eyes and you're still half asleep, a little bit dazed. That's when I remember my dreams. And I have a little notebook or maybe my phone by the side of my bed so that the first thing I do, I write down everything I can still remember, all the details. And even then, it's still hard. Even then, I still forget half the dream. But the dreams I've been able to note down, to write down, they have revealed so much to me about myself, about what goes on inside me, but also about the world. It tells me things about the world, right? And so I recommend this to everybody, by the way. Go and record some of your dreams. I guess you don't need to record hundreds, but record a few, especially the ones that you still, sometimes you have a dream that you still remember in the afternoon. You have like a flashback of that dream in the afternoon. Those ones are usually like the more poignant ones, the more pressing ones, the ones that come back to you a second time. Write those down because they are telling you something that you need to know about yourself or about the future, right? So that's hold on. If there's people who don't enjoy the things I'm saying, I always wonder, why are you here? I never listen to people I'm not interested in listening to. If I'm scrolling TikTok and I see people I don't like what they're saying, I just scroll on and move on. Or if people say things, you know, I don't feel like insulting them. I just totally just move on and forget about them. So I'm almost often quite surprised why there are even negative people in my comments at all. There's some people who always come to insult me and I wonder, why do you do that? Do you enjoy watch so you hate me but you keep watching me? What kind of psychology is that? I think I'm gonna want to talk to a psychologist on this one. Maybe they can explain to me, why are there people who hate me and they watch my entire stream but they hate me? What are you doing? You're mentally ill. Do you hear me? You're mentally ill. Thank you very much. On the content level, I like the Forum for Democracy in the Netherlands political party. That doesn't mean I like the people. I usually never like the people anyway, but in terms of the content, yeah, I can support that. I thought this was a nice stream, nice. I spoke to you the whole time about technology and the development of it all and the way I see it, where it's going. Anyway, I want to talk a bit more about the future of humanity then, which I think is what it's really about. I would like to sort of return, right? Sometimes the past starts looking more and more like the future that we want, right? I saw an image of people in the 1920s in New York City having cocktails with a view of the New York skyline, but they were having that in the Art Deco style, right? And it was so beautiful. I think Art Deco is quite a beautiful architectural style. right? And nowadays everything is just shit. There's no style really. It's empty, soulless, right? We don't want that. We want the soulful architecture and art and so on to come back to us. And so where I would like humanity to regress in a sense, to forget about the so-called modern age. We're just going to go back to something that made a lot more sense to everybody. What about Africa? You know, most Africans will always stay in Africa. So same with the Chinese. Most Chinese people will stay in China. Even though white people went to North America, Australia, and South Africa, the majority of white people alive today, they still live in Europe. They didn't leave Europe. So it's going to be like that for them too. And same with the Indians. Oh, there's so many Indian migrants coming to Europe and the USA, but the majority of Indians will stay in India. So what do I think of Africa? I wish them good luck. I mean no harm to them. If they want to do whatever they want in Africa, go ahead and do it. Right? Maybe someday they will attempt to do a war with Europe and they want to colonize Europe. Well, then we'll just fight them. You know, I'm not afraid of these things. Yeah, bring true art back, you know. I think personally I would favor a life where people feel more confident because they feel energized by a connection with their ancestors, with their God, right? And you feel that you matter in this world. And I don't often have that feeling when I walk around town or something, or when you have to do work for customers or some clients or whatever. It does not make you feel appreciated even at all, you know? This is not normal. We're not supposed to feel so miserable as though we were slaves. We deserve to be masters in charge of our own life. I think crypto in the end, it's a speculative asset. It won't survive forever. So I'm not going to give you any advice other than make sure to get out before the big crash. Yeah, belonging, that you belong, right, right. What do you think of privatization? You know, these debates, I don't find them very interesting. All right. All right. I've been speaking to you for about an hour now. Usually that means I will log off because I noticed every time after an hour I run out of things to say. I want to thank you all for watching. You can go to my newsletter at jmk.info. You can subscribe there. There's an option to get a paid subscription if you want to fund me. You can always also fund me on buymeacoffee.com/JohannesMK. And I'm on Twitter X as at JohannesMKX. So, and I'm on YouTube as well at The Great Johannes. So I'm just bombing you with my socials. All right, I thought this one was very productive, so I'm going to upload this version, this stream, to my newsletter and also to my YouTube at The Great Johannes. So you can rewatch the whole thing there and everything I have to say. I'm not, yeah, actually, I'm also on Instagram called at The Great JMK. You'll find me there as well. All right, thank you very much, and I enjoyed it.